Hello, my name is Amber Limser. This is our second podcast on choice-based art education in my fifth graders art classroom. This is our first week working in centers. We started out the day looking at a Pinterest board that I made for the students on culture. We looked at different images of different cultures such as Native Americans, De los Muertos, which is the Day of the Dead for our Hispanic cultural students. We looked at some American culture. We looked at some gaming culture, video games. A lot of my students are into video games. We looked at some religious cultural backgrounds. And then we talked about one artist in particular, James Mollison, who did a series of artworks on children's bedrooms. And we discussed those children's bedrooms and how they were alike and how they were different from our cultures. And then we discussed what culture means to us. Some of my students said that culture was about who they were as a person. Some of them said it was our family's ideas or beliefs, our religious backgrounds. Some students said it was how we dressed and how we looked, which was completely true. Some students went on to say it was more about how we wanted to be as a society and how we related to each other. And so it became this very in-depth kind of discussion about what culture was. Some students really didn't know what to think about what culture was, and they'd really never ever thought about what their background was or where they came from or what we do as a society. So it was a new experience for them. We had to really talk about what culture meant to us and how we related to it and what it was exactly. Some of my students said, they're going to have to look up what culture is, so we're going to have to inquire about what that is more in depth and see where that goes. We started out with our pre-discussion worksheet today, asking questions about how artists could relate to culture and what we could do as artists to create about our cultures. We did little drawings of how cultures relate to us and how our cultures are related and what our cultures are about and who we are in our cultures. A lot of my students started rough drafts about what they wanted to do for their cultures. One of my students started an I Am project, which is where she thinks about some of the things that she is in a part of her culture, and she does basically a poster about her identity as a Hispanic American and how her lifestyle is and how her religion is, and she's going to write about that and put it into a poster form, which I think is very neat. One of my other students was thinking about American culture and how some of it is very urban and how some of it is related to farming. She was looking at different pictures of birds and was like, this bird is the New York state bird. So the cardinal, I think it's the blue jay, is the state bird, I do believe. I think that's what she was looking at today. And she decided to do a collage about urban atmospheres and the state bird that goes with an urban atmosphere. So she picked New York, and I think she's going to pick a farming, probably Arkansas or Kentucky, to do a farming collage on it. She's very excited. She's looked into a lot of different images and magazines about cities and what they look like. She's talked to me a little bit about what glue she might use. So we're looking at some different glues for her and how that's going to work. She kind of tested Elmer's and she said it was kind of runny. She kind of really loves the rubber cement, so I'm thinking that she might work with the rubber cement. I'm really excited to see where that goes. Some of my students are working in groups together. Our sculpture center has a group of girls that is working together on a cultural background about their Aztec or Mayan background. So they're looking at building a temple on that, and I hope to go more in depth with that, but they've been coming in at recess and it's just been crazy. So lots of inquiry there. One of my students is doing his project on Native Americans. He's already started talking to me about the different styles of houses that they want to that they lived in. He's kind of done some what I would call research into what he wants to use as his materials. He started out with some popsicle sticks doing a longhouse, and he really didn't like that. It was taking too long, and they were breaking. The hot glue that he was using wasn't really working, so he moved to paper. It seems to be a little more bendable for him, and it's working better for him, but he's also thinking about time constraints. He's asked me a lot of questions about how many hours he has to work on this, and he's done some plans of attack, some drawings about how he wants it to look, so he'll be ready to work on that immediately when we start our projects next week. So it should be kind of interesting to see where he goes on that. Some of my students are doing some very stereotypical things, so we're having to really talk about what is really cultural based, or are you diving into a different realm of culture? Like our Hispanic Americans, a lot of them want to do the Mexico flag, which is great, but they are also Americans, so we're having to really talk about, does that relate to our culture, and how does the Mexico flag relate into our culture? And so a lot of them have been going home and talking to their parents about this, and they feel very strongly about their Hispanic culture, which is really interesting. Some of my girls are making Native American rattles. They are learning about the Native Americans in their social studies unit, so they're really into what items they use and how they use them, and so they've been working on these Native American rattle bead designs. We've been testing out different beads that they could use, beads like for jewelry or rocks or seeds, so it's been really interesting to see how that plays out. A lot of my other students wanted to do artwork on their cultural backgrounds, such as Hispanic. I have a very large population of Hispanics, so we have some doing kind of a cliche of De los Muertos, but to me, it's not necessarily about a cliche so much as about being more in depth and learning more about your culture. I'm seeing a lot of use of pattern, a lot of use of religious symbols, symbols of where they come from. One of my students, he is from Ireland, so he has the four-leaf clover, and it's just been a really interesting process seeing their rough drafts and seeing how they're going to turn out. So I'm really excited to see what next week holds for us, and I do believe that through this we are getting some inquiry, and we're definitely getting some research and thinking about what materials we're going to use, thinking about how we're going to build these items or paint these items, and what our plans of attacks are, our time constraints. We're really thinking, and it's a lot of hands-on, and my students are not only engaged, but I'm not having to push them to do their projects. They are actually on top of their A game, doing their work, really focused, bringing in things from home, talking to their parents. So we're not only involving ourselves in this, I'm more of a bystander. They're facilitating this program. I am just sitting back and watching it unfold, and I'm getting a lot of parents sending notes to me, asking me questions too, which is really good for us because so many art teachers have trouble talking to parents, and it's just been kind of interesting. First week of school, or first week of units planned, so hopefully next week is a lot more interesting. I can't wait to talk to you about it. All right. Have a good night.